Good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock. The committee of the whole is called back to order from the first and second round of Bill 277. Unfortunately, we don't have quorum. I only have two of my colleagues here with me, and that's Vice Speaker Tina Rose Munoz Barnes and Senator Roy Canata. Thank you for making it, and then we'll continue the recess until we have a quorum. Thank you. The committee of the whole is called back to order. My colleagues, we are now in the third round, which are only amendments and comments. Apologize for that. There are only two amendments. First one is introduced by Senator Will Parkinson. Senator, go ahead and read your amendment.
Yes, sir. And this is on page 2 to add a new section 2 to the bill to read reconciliation requirement. The Guam Power Authority shall conduct a thorough reconciliation of all accounts related to energy credit within 30 days following the end of each fiscal year. The reconciliation process shall include an audit of all energy credits dispersed and identification of any unused appropriation. Upon completion of the reconciliation process, GPA shall determine the total amount of unused appropriations allocated for energy credits. Any unused portions of the appropriation shall be returned to the general fund of the government of Guam within 60 days following the completion of the reconciliation process, and also to allow Legislative Council to make technical corrections and renumber sections accordingly. Basically what this is it's codifying something that GPA is already doing. GPA is already going through this process, and just as a guideline, might as well codify it if it's something they're already doing.
Thank you, Senator Parkinson. Does anyone like to speak to this? Because this was brought up during our first and second round, the reconciliation. Anyone who would like to speak to this amendment? Senator Blas, and then followed by Senator Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, first off, support the amendment. Okay, thank you for it. The question, though, that I have is when it's to be returned to the general fund, where in the general fund is this going to go to?
It just goes to the
We
pot.
we don't have a pot like that, Mr. Chair. You know that. Unless we put it into it goes into a specific line item appropriate.
It just goes to the general.
It goes to where in the general fund does it go to? There's
okay. Okay. Anyway, just go ahead.
What's that?
No, continue, Senator Blas.
Where in the again? I appreciate it. Okay, it's just where in the general fund is this going to go to? The general fund is made up of many different parts after it's broken up. But where does it go to? My suggestion is to put it into the rainy day fund.
No, was it the what fund?
A rainy day fund.
Maybe you could make that amendment, and then that's where it'll go.
Yeah, if you're willing to make that amendment, sir, I would happily support it.
Point of information, Mr. Chair, if I may. On the point of information, once funds that are not encumbered or they need to go back, it goes straight into the big pocket of the general fund. It is up to this body to reappropriate once that money goes back, unless we as a body specifically make an amendment or include where the fund will go to, whether it be a new fund or an existing fund that is already existing, whether it be the rainy day fund, whether it be all the different special funds that we have listed, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. And if you want, Senator Blas, maybe an amendment would be, and if my colleagues would agree to it, return to the general fund parenthesis rainy day fund, and then that'll be the amendment, and we can just make the corrections instead of having to.
Yes, please.
Okay. Are there any objection to that amendment, or do we need to discuss it further? Senator Barnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just for clarification, are we talking about subsection D, and that would then read any unused portion of the appropriation shall be returned to the rainy day fund of the government of Guam?
Oh yeah, that's basically it. Okay. Instead of general fund, say rainy day fund. Okay. Are there any objection to that? And we'll make that amendment. Quinn, can you do that? Okay, that's being taken care of by the clerk. They'll change the word general to rainy day fund. All right, Senator Blas, are we good with that? Are there any?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I appreciate the clerk working on that right now as we save a tree, but I think for purposes of the process, that should be a motion made by Senator Blas, just to put it in the rainy day fund, or whoever else wants to.
Thank you.
So moved.
So moved. Are there any objection to that? need for
Thanks, sis.
discussion?
No, no objection.
No, no objection. Okay, that amendment passes. Now we're back to Senator Brown.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask the mover of this amendment, what exactly does he mean by unexpended funds? Is this funds that there's no customer of GPA that received them? Because we might have cases where we have individuals who did not expend their entire $100. Not everybody has a $500 power bill every month. And if they didn't expend it and it's credited to them for future months that they've saved because they haven't expended that power, do they lose that or do they maintain and keep that credit until they expend it?
Senator Parks, do you yield to the question?
Yes, I yield to the question. My understanding is that we keep the credit, but they said a limited number of the funds was returned. I believe they said 100,000 of the 15.8 million. And so I don't know what are the specifics of that 100,000 that are being returned, and but I do understand it's a very small amount.
I just, Mr. Chair, want to make it sure it's clarified so that those customers out there that, you know, some people don't, you know, run the air conditioner, some maybe use the fan, and, you know, they have the tree next to the house that keeps the house cool, that are very conservative with how they use power, and I'm sure they would not want to lose whatever credit they may have accumulated during this time. It may be just a couple $100, $50, I don't know what it may be, but I just want to make sure those customers are not losing that credit and that they'll, because they've not expended it on their own account, can moving forward be able to still use that. It might be another month or two, depending on what they have left, but I just want to make sure that that's not impacted, because if it is, I don't think that's fair for those that have been very conservative in their use of the power.
And you're correct, Senator Brown. And I know of customers that did not spend it, and they've got like 6 months of credit, because some of them are under $100, and they've extended 6 months. Could I ask Mr. Benavente that? GPS says, what happens to the money? No, it's credited to that account, the customer. They can't touch it, it's theirs. It just rolls until it's exhausted. Some of them they're enjoying this right now because they just the credit just keeps going forever.
I understand. I just want to make sure that that's clarified so that whatever, and then again, certainly if there's monies that it didn't go to, you know, they covered everybody's account and there's extra, then certainly by all means we would want to see that money returned. But I just want to make sure that the credit issue with the customer is not impacted with regards to return of any unexpended credit they may have not used during this time.
Understood. Thank you. Okay. Anything else, Senator Brown? Nothing else? Senator Talo-Tariwi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had the same, question, but I do, by experience, know that an individual who's living at an apartment right now has been living there for a while and then just had to transfer because the apartment became now their home. They bought it outright. So they had a credit of almost $400 of power credit. Unfortunately, they lost it. They lost the $400 because the power bill was not in the buyer's name. So it cannot be transferred to another name. The power credit cannot. But considering some of the other people I've spoken to, they've been very conservative, like Senator Brown mentioned, and they have like a credit of up to $500 right now still sitting there, and they will continue to use it. When I asked the question earlier about what excess funding there is, it was said $108,000 of excess from the last power credit. Now there was also another one prior that, because this makes our fourth time extending this power credit. And at the end of each power credit or each bill that we pass, there has been money that's been left over. And I think it's important that reconcile all the accounts. I know we can't do an amendment to an amendment because there's already an amendment on this, but I just want to ask the author, has he been able to review, since this is our fourth or fifth time extending these credits at the end of every 3 months? I think the first time we went 6 months, if I'm not mistaken. Has there been a list of what was left over at all?
Senator Will, do you yield to the question?
No, I don't yield to the question.
Oh, it doesn't know the answer?
It doesn't yield to the question.
Oh, because it doesn't know the answer. Okay. Well, I guess this time around, with this requirement, hopefully because to allow legislature again to make technical power. Okay, where's this report going to, though? So can he answer that at least? Where is this report going to? This reconciling requirement? What report is sent to who? The governor or the legislature?
Senator Will, do you yield to that?
No, I won't yield to that.
Oh my goodness. If the guy's going to ponder for votes by using this as a bill for him to move forward, he can't even answer the question? What is he so afraid of? Oh my goodness, it's a simple question. I want to know where this report is going to go. That's the question. It's very simple.
He just doesn't have the answer. So we do get comms and messages, okay? We need to check if that's even coming in through our communications. And if it is, then that's where it's at.
Okay, Mr. Chair, then since I can't put an amendment onto this because an amendment is already put on,
Right.
Oh, wait, okay. We have the clerk.
The amendment to the amendment already passed.
Right.
So if you want to make an amendment to the amended as amended, you can add that part on where the report will go.
Then my amendment, then I would have to write it out, Mr. Chair, or just have an amendment to require that this report be given to the legislature.
Okay, the clerk will assist in
Or at
that.
least OFB, so they know what's there, if there's any money going into the general fund, and if we can expend that during the budget time.
Okay, so what verbiage do you want so that the clerk will create that amendment? So we can just speed along through this process.
Okay, let me just, 1 minute. I can work with the clerk to make it easier for him to.
Okay, I'll just ask if anyone else would like to speak because, does anybody have any objection to that amendment? That the report's gonna go to, I would assume the legislature, the speaker, and we just move along with this. Senator Tello, is that the motion pretty much? Right? Okay, now, Senator Tello, if you can just tell us exactly your amendment. I don't see any objection right now from the body, so if we just know exactly how you want it amended.
It's recommended by the clerk to do this on Section B, right after used portion appropriations to include a report provided to the Speaker of Legislature in Guam.
All right, are there any objection to that amendment while the clerk is preparing it? There being none, do we need it? Motion passes. Anything further, Senator Tello? If not, we'll just move along on the bill. We're good? Okay. Does anyone like to speak to the amendment as amended and further amended? There being none. Are there any objection to the amendment as amended and further amendment? There being none, so ordered. That amendment is done. We move forward to the next one. Okay, the next one is Senator Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment is proffered by me. Make changes on bill number 277-37 on lines number 3 to 7 and 6 through 14, pages 1 and 2. This amendment increases the credit to 3 more months. Line 3 to 7, page 1, $31,656,000 is hereby appropriated from fiscal year 2024 general fund revenues collected in excess of adopted levels enumerated in Public Law 37-42 as amended to the Guam Power Authority for a 6 months extension. And on line 6 through 14, page 2, to be disbursed $100 each month for the month of April 2024, May 2024, June 2024, July 2024, August 2024, and September 2024, and shall be credited to the current billing of such months. The sum of $31,656,000 shall be disbursed to the Guam Power Authority in 6-month equally installments for the purposes of this section. The Guam Power Authority shall reflect the $100 energy credit on each customer's billing statement pursuant to this section. The Department of Administration shall equally disburse this appropriation to the Guam Power Authority for each of the 6 months, April 2024, May 2024, June 2024, July 2024, August 2024, and September 2024. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Nicholas. Does anyone would like to speak on this amendment? Senator Parkinson, and then followed by Senator Blas.
I stand in full support of this amendment. When we came into this committee of the whole, I know you had attempted to waive this committee of the whole meeting because we thought we knew what was in there, but I'm really glad that we went through this process because it really illuminated for me and for the people of Guam that there's more money than we thought there was and that we actually have the ability to do 6 months. So by slowing down and not rushing the process, we were able to show that we were able to do more. So thank you for that. And also thank you to, Speaker Therese Terlahi, Senator Chris Barnett, and Senator Sabina Perez for introducing their version of the bill. That inspired me to make the call to action, like, let's extend this. And I'm glad that one of my colleagues has stepped up and made this amendment because I think that, we need to show to people of Guam that this is not my power credit, this is not Joseph Augustine's power credit, this is not the Speaker's power credit, it's not Dwayne's power credit. This is the power credit of the 37th Guam Legislature, and this is a team effort that we did to bring this relief to people. And so I commend the proffer of this amendment, Senator Dwayne Nicholas, for embracing the reality because as a previous speaker had said in earlier sessions, this is something we may never see again, and if we might never have an opportunity to do this again, let's do this now. The power credit is the single most best and efficient thing we've done to help the people of Guam. And I take umbrage with this accusation that we are doing this to pander for votes. This has been going on for 2 years. If we've been pandering for votes, we've been pandering for votes for a very long time. But I reject that notion. We're doing this because it's helpful, it's effective, and it really makes a difference with Antitita, as my good friend Senator Dwayne says. And so, we have other things that we want to talk about in these sessions down this summer. So let's just take the Speaker's bill, put it into this amendment with Senator Dwayne's effort, and let's just have one big bill that gets us pretty much to the end of the year so that during these next important summer sessions, we could concentrate that time on other discussions because we know the power credits are done conversation. So I implore my colleagues to please support this. I also thank my colleagues who have come before and come after me in carrying this baton of progress from the originator, Senator Joe, to the Speaker with the original extension, to myself, and now to Senator Dwayne. Let's show the people of Guam we could work together and do something good for them. With that, I yield the rest of my time, and I ask my colleagues to support this amendment.
Thank you, Senator Parkinson. Senator Blas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, a couple concerns that I have with this amendment, first off. And it also speaks to the original bill in that there's a strikeout of the months to be affected in the months of starting from April 2024 to September 2024. It's already May 30th. The April bill already went out. So are we going to back credit this? Or can they be, is it back credited? Is it going to be moved forward? The problem is you make this distinct or this specific. If the bill already went out, then you can't, you're not going to get any credit for that. Are you sure?
Yes, Senator Blas, and the reason why is because we went through this at one time where we were ahead, and what happened was when I opened up online my bill, it showed instead of $100, it was $200. So you do get credit.
I just wanted to make sure that if that was the intent, I just don't want them to be, because the billing already went out, they're not going to be able to get credit for it. But if you say that they can advance the credit, you know, so the next power bill will be $200 credit. That's the first concern that I have. Secondly, as noble as I understand this to be, you know, Mr. Chair, this body can come in a moment's notice, quite honestly, and extend a 3-month to another 3 months if the money is there. And recognizing, yes, the conversations that we had this morning, that the money, that there apparently appears to be right now more than enough money to be able to satisfy this amendment. The fact of the matter is, if you can recall back in the discussions that we had with Bill 173, okay, the initial discussion from the administration was there was no money. Then all of a sudden there was. Well, reverse that conversation, and there is money, then all of a sudden there isn't. Then what? Okay? The $21 million is there. Okay? The additional amounts or the amounts that are necessary are the ones that are going to be anticipated to be there. Why are we going to then peg an appropriation on anticipated money when it's not there yet? Okay, or we don't understand, or we don't know what other bills or what other payments that we're going to have to be making, or we're going to have to decide as a body. So it's not lost, and it's not the opportunity to be able to extend it is not lost if this amendment wasn't considered. It doesn't lose the fact that we're already going to get 3 months, and then within the 3 months, take a look at the finances and stuff. And before the expiration of these 3 months, if we can extend it, and extend it another 3 months, another 4 months if we can. But to say that we can do this now because it's there, I don't want to, you know, again, it's not saying that it can't be done, but is it necessary for it to be done now? And that's the concern that I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Blas. Anyone else like to speak to this? Senator Brown.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I kind of echo the points that were raised by Senator Blas, because a lot of things can change in the next 2 to 3 months. And, you know, we've been at this, at least I have, long enough to know that you can't assume anything here. GMH, we're not done with the fiscal year. Is GMH paying all their vendors on time? Are all the obligations that are to be addressed with the critical services at the hospital being addressed? No, I still hear complaints every day. That doesn't count anything else that may come up between now and then. I mean, we didn't anticipate a typhoon a year ago where we had to front some money before the federal government came in to provide assistance. And we don't know what's coming in the next 2 to 3 months. Next 2 to 3 months, things can look very different. So, I mean, I understand our junior colleagues' eagerness because, yes, no, we're not pandering for votes. I mean, this proposal didn't just come up before the last gubernatorial election, did it? Let's not kid ourselves. I think our people are a lot more enlightened, and I'm not complaining because this is something we all benefit, including every member of this legislature that has a power bill, that has a House with a power bill, that benefits from this. But when I see critical services in our government, and more of our colleagues attended more of the public hearings, Mr. Chair, including the budget hearings, maybe they'd hear about all those critical areas in the government of Guam that we're not funding. And you know they're there. I know they're there. And we're not taking care of those other critical things. It's easy to want to take credit for this because this is easy. This is not heavy lifting here, colleagues. Let's not kid ourselves. There's other more critical needs in this government that require a lot more time and attention and effort. We just don't need to show up for session because, oh, we got this easy one to put through. And I appreciate the efforts by my good colleague, Senator Duane, to introduce this. But I think in our over-eagerness to want to take credit for all of this, we're not looking ahead of what could be. And I don't know what the situation of the government of Guam is going to be in 3 months. And you know, like our speaker said, yeah, put the bill out for public hearing. Then put her bill up for public hearing. Put everybody else's bill up for public hearing. Fair is fair. But let's not get too overeager, colleagues, and think you got it in the bag, because there's a lot of things out there that are not being addressed, not being funded. Let's look at DOE. And we know because there's only the few of us that attend the DOE hearings, right? Mr. Chairman of Education, or the prison, let's go down the list. We'll wait for the next prisoner to break out. We'll next for the next prisoner to get beaten up in their cell because there's not proper security and monitoring going up there. Or the children in this community that are not being well taken care of because they don't have families that are taking care of them. Or the children of special needs in our school system that, you know, are worrying whether or not they're still going to have their one-on-one aid at the beginning of the school year. So let's not kid ourselves that this is all good and wonderful and, hey, ain't we doing something good for you people of Guam? Hey, pat myself on the back. Make sure you remember my number on the voting list, huh? I don't know what's going to happen in 3 months. I'm a little more cautious. I'm not ready to just run down the road and say, hey, yeah, let's do it. Because this is easy stuff. This is easy. This is not heavy. This is in a puppet. I go my cat is in a puppet. Oh my goodness. This is nothing. This is easy. This is copying something somebody else already did many times ago. But addressing the other more critical needs of our people, because unless you're going to say our children are not important, the needs of healthcare of our people are not important, and more importantly, what bothers our people more now is public safety. We can sit here and say, thank you for my power credit, but Lana, I can't even walk out of my house. I don't even know if I'm safe at night. I don't even know if I'm safe in my house at night. So when I look at those bigger issues, Mr. Chairman, the ones that really require a lot more effort and work, I'm a little more cautious. So I appreciate the effort, and I understand the desire to do this, but is this a responsible thing to do now? No, I don't think it is. I think we need to wait and see, because the time's coming, Mr. Chair, and just in this session alone, not only when the time comes that this money runs out that our people are not going to get the power credit, then they're going to get a multiplication number added to their water bill, and it's going to be a double hit. Because now we got to worry about the contaminants that are in our drinking water now that we used to brag about our Northern Guam waterlands, how fortunate we are, how much benefit we have in our community and our economy. And now look, and yet we want to, add more contaminants to it. Think about that, 71% rate increase. 71%. And I don't have a $100 water bill. I don't know about those that do, that are willing to pay, hey, another $150, maybe $170, $180, and who knows by the time Waterworks is done what it's going to cost on a monthly basis. Power, I can adjust. I can go hook up my solar light. Water, I think we all agree if there's an essential need on this island, water is right up there. So I appreciate the effort, Mr. Chair, but I'm not running down the road right now to say, yeah, let's do this all, because we don't have any other obligation of the government. Things change so quickly, obligations change, and unless you're going to tell me any of those things I brought up are not as important, if not even more important, then go ahead and vote for this. Because when the time comes and the money ain't there, or you're going to have to start cutting into the flesh of the government, and I've had to do that. When you really have to deal with the real work, it's not when things are plentiful, Mr. Chairman. That's easy. It's when things are not, and you have to make tough decisions on what you got to prioritize. So I echo the reservations of my good colleague, Senator Blas. Do your 3 months. If you can do that, 3 months, we need to come back, and we can come back at any time to address this legislation or similar legislation at the appropriate time. So with that, Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Anyone else like to speak to this amendment? We got the clock. Okay. Senator Lujan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I just want to get clarification because, you know, the original bill actually has the, this appropriation running out in June, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So that would mean that if we were to extend it again after, well, after June, and
becomes July, August, September.
this particular amendment doesn't pass, that we would have to come back in June, next month, basically.
That's correct. If this amendment doesn't pass,
If a bill were to be introduced for another 3 months, right?
it has been introduced already by the speaker. There is a bill.
There is a bill already, okay.
Right. But this is an amendment
So this
to
just
the bill.
consolidates it.
This bill is an amendment. This amendment is amendment to the bill, which is
Okay.
inclusive of
Okay,
that other bill.
okay.
Kind of
Got
like.
it. And another clarification, as Senator Blas had brought up, because we're already, the May billing has already gone out, but it's, how would that, would they just deduct this in your bills going forward then?
That's correct. And I gave that example because
Okay.
I received that.
Yeah, okay.
Where we were behind a month in the bill that we passed. In the bill, it reflected instead of $100, it reflected $200. So all they do is they just catch up. They identify the.
Okay. No, I just want to
52,000
make sure
folks.
because, I mean, there's, you know, there are folks listening out there who maybe just, hey, here's the money, go pay it, and I just want to make sure that they're listening and know what they're paying for and if they're getting the credit or not. That di man mafababane and hazim mo papasi I bill niya. Di mapolo ki credit. Dala siguro ale. Okay. No, I just want to make sure, and if there's already a bill introduced, again, to extend it another 3 months, I mean, this just consolidates it. And anyway, I just wanted to get clarification in regards to again, the expiration being in June, the original bill, and July, August, September additions is already a bill introduced, and this just kind of puts it together, combines it. Right? Is that?
That's correct.
Okay. It's what.
That's
Thank you,
generally
Mr.
what it
Chair.
is.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Does anyone else like to speak to this amendment? Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did introduce a bill regarding extending this credit once the CRER came out and showed that we had much more than we had anticipated, $40 million more. And when we think about how to spend that money, you know, we think about also that there's money in ARP funding that is also waiting to be spent, allocated but waiting to be spent. And we see $10 million now of that being sent over to Gura to purchase private property. It's my understanding. We don't really have the details in front of us, but that's my understanding. I'm hoping we get the details soon. And I remember when we first started this energy credit, it was a big debate we had. Can this be funded by ARP? And they were so adamant, absolutely not. They would not fund the power credit with ARP money, which we thought would have been appropriate because these increase in prices and the hardships that the people of Guam are going through, a lot of them began in the pandemic or were exacerbated in the pandemic if they had already begun for many families because of the cost of living. But since the pandemic, I think we have seen these things really skyrocket. So whether there is a hardship and a need, absolutely yes. And there are a list of things that also need to be funded in the government, absolutely yes. But what's really puzzling and frustrating is that we do not see an urgency by the administration to fund the GMH, to take care of this shortfall that they claim they have right now, to take care of their EHR system, their billing. Despite the money that we've given over there, they created a executive order fiscal team that's supposed to help this hospital because of all the problems that we had cited when we passed the $30 million and they gave $20 million in ARP. They did do that. But still, we keep hearing the problems persist. They've made great strides, so I want to thank them for their work at GMH, but still, I still think they are not getting the support that they need there so that they don't keep coming and saying, we just can't manage this. And I tried to ask that this morning. We've got, but I don't know. So what I'm thinking is, this is the one thing they refuse to fund out of ARP. And they are actually finding a way to fund a real property tax assessment out of ARP, to fund the purchase or a loan for the purchase of private land out of ARP. They've found all kinds of things to pay out of ARP, but they cannot pay this credit directly to the people of Guam. So I am willing that we can, that's why I introduced that bill, is to use our power that we have to use the general fund to pay this to the people that they refuse to pay to the people, or to assist them. It's really not paying the people, it's assisting them with a power, LEAC, what do you call it, the gas costs of our power bills that are beyond reasonable households' means. So by us assisting them, hopefully we're going to get a little bit closer to that magic date of when the new power plant goes up and the LEAC costs go down, and then they hopefully will get a real built-in relief on power bills. But I agree with my colleague that we are looking at increases everywhere to continue. So this is just one relief that we would like to give. We would like to give all this list, but we're not going to be able to. So the administration is going to have to be able to make some tough choices as to using their ARP, re-examining and allocating the use of that ARP for some of these things that are unpaid. Running the sewer with even the infrastructure money. So we don't have to fund that out of our general fund, which we're trying to do is give these sewer and water customers hookups so that they don't have to pay that out of their pocket. But anyways, so I'm glad we're able to do this even sooner than if my bill had passed. And I'm going to support this amendment, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Anyone else like to speak to this amendment? Senator Barnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I was a co-sponsor on the Bill 310, along with Speaker and Senator Sabina Perez, and this bill would have extended the power credit, right? And, you know, we heard from the dynamic duo of finance up here that there's all these, we have 41 some million excess right now, and when they totaled up all the bills that are just introduced, not even public hearing or anything, they said it was something like $74 million. So while in introducing the bill, I was kind of comfortable that we would be able to get it heard and, you know, see it go through the process, the regular process. With all these competing measures, you know, I was kind of nervous that we might see what potentially could be an extension of this power credit be eaten up by any of the other bills that, you know, our colleagues have introduced. And so, yeah, I too am going to support this amendment. It was tough, though, because we could walk away with assisting our people with Senator Parkinson's bill, right? That would be a win for our people. And that would be good. But would it be good enough? Maybe not, especially if we see a lot of this excess revenue get eaten up and then we come to the point where we do try and hear Bill 310 and, you know, Tadza Salapi, so I support getting it done now. And it is unfortunate. The retiring speaker had said that the administration is going to have to make some tough decisions. Well, damn, it's about time, because we've been making all the tough decisions. It's like a tale of two governments when you hear Adelup talking about our finances versus what we hear across the hall in the public hearing room. Kalantorudu malfunction, Gov Guam, it's everything from, and the previous speakers are right, the Department of Corrections, the Guam Police Department, the Department of Education. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And trying to sort through whether these issues across the government are a matter of, lack of funds or mismanagement or some combination of both, I think is the hardest part of our job. And I think it's a combination of all those things. And so being able to extend this credit now, I support it. And again, it is just frustrating to have to deal with a lot of these issues that come to the legislature that, they talk so much about the senators and how, we don't want to work with anybody. But, at the end of the day, who are these agencies coming to for help? They're coming to us. They're coming to the legislature for solutions. You know what I mean? They're walking right past Adelup and coming down here and telling us about $74 million shortfalls for the Guam Memorial Hospital. And we get the Lieutenant Governor come out with a big press release. Oh, we're gonna empanel this fiscal team that's gonna rescue GMH. When we had Ed Byrne and Lester Carlson in here a couple hours ago, it doesn't even sound like they've even met with the Guam Memorial Hospital. They didn't even. What did he say? Oh, they asked us for equipment. They didn't ask us for money. Are they even meeting? And so I just feel like, in a lot of ways, Adelup looks for these wins by putting out these big press releases like, hey, we're going to address it by forming a fiscal team. And then, lo and behold, a couple months later, what do they have to show for it? It's us. It's us going into the weeds, trying to sort through all the nonsense, us trying to figure out how much money is there when we don't even have access to the new financial management system. So just wanted to express my frustration on the record about that. But yeah, I support the amendment. In any way we can assist people, we assist them now. We extend the credit. And hopefully we can use some of these excess revenues to be able to assist our people in the many other ways that they're going to need it down the road, whether it's increases, right, like we heard yesterday, to the water rates, or, I just really hope that when GPA gets into that new power plant and the fuel surcharge and all these things that are inflating the power bills, they say they're going to go down. I really hope that happens, because a lot of times we hear these things, we hear, oh, it's going to happen, or there's good news coming, and then, a few months down the road, we don't even get the news, and it ends up being worse news. So that's all, Mr. Chair, and thank you.
Thank you, Senator Burnett. Looking across the hall, does anyone like to speak? Senator Tamatari.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. From 46,156,732. If this amendment passes, all that's left is 14,500,732. Based on last year, we didn't see an increase the following month when it went from this month, when it came from the ending of April into May. There was no increase. It actually kind of stayed the same, the CRR report. $70 million is what's needed for the hospital, our current hospital. 70. DOC is in need. The bill that was vetoed for something technical, maybe technical, but the money was $5 million, when we both know it's actually $10 million is what DOC needs to start their first phase. The reason why I bring these two areas up is because I'm worried about receivership. Receivership on both ends. Receivership from the hospital, those rumors have been trailing for almost 2 years. And DOC, that's next. And we all know what happens when there's a receivership. and how much money is being spent, just like the landfill when it went into receivership. DOE is another area. I mean, it's a mess over there right now. Just remember this, that when time comes, and this amendment, of course, it has the votes to pass. It's an election year. Of course, it has the votes to pass. But when time comes and we need this money for critical areas like the hospital, you go and talk to a parent where a child is at the hospital and needs medication, but the hospital doesn't have it because they weren't able to pay their vendors or get that medication. You talk to the parents of someone like that. That'll be on your conscience. But what's going to happen here, the way I predicted, is if we go ahead and do this, and the time comes where the administration really needs the money, or something might come up where they need $40 million to $30 million, they're going to blame us. Well, the legislature spent it all. So what's left? The rainy day fund, $57,710,000, the rainy day fund. And you know, Mr. Chair, since you've been the oversight on OFB, and we've been pushing to ensure that rainy day fund is built up. We have to remember that rainy day was put in place for specific reasons, emergency reasons. So what are we going to use? Say that we're going to start using $57 million from the rainy day fund? Well, it sounds like that's where it's going to go. And that's very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. It's about being responsible, fiscally responsible. This is the people's money. And if we can't provide the medication that's needed at the hospital, or to ensure individuals don't break out of jail because it's not equipped enough to be safe enough for our community, by keeping them in a solid facility, keep our public safe. It's beyond me. And wait till the water rates come in. Are we going to do that when the water rates come in? Are we going to do the same thing? Probably, because in 2 years, it'll be a gubernatorial election. We need to be fiscally responsible. This body needs to be fiscally responsible. And remember, there are other things that we need to pay. And I haven't even get started on the roads, on our roads, that we have failed for the last 2 years in addressing. Our broken roads. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Tyree. Does anyone else like to speak to this amendment? You can close on your amendment when it comes to you, Senator Snickers. Does anyone else like to speak to this? If not, if you can close on your amendment there, Senator Snickers, so we can move forward and ask if there's any objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I asked my colleagues for their support on the amendment. You know, whenever I proffer something, you know, it has to go through the DAD test and the Antitita test. I mentioned that earlier. Would this thing make my dad proud? And would this help Antitita? And it passed both tests. And I, along with my Republican colleagues, have voted against that previous measure because I felt that when it was presented, that there was no money. And so like them, I wanted to be physically responsible as well and not pass on something. But in this case, it's a different story. We were presented with a $46 million surplus. And ginguaja, pues tanay, you know, and gwin malik para tres, you know, for 3, then it's good for 6. And I pay a lot of taxes, business privilege tax, and I mulled this over in my head, like, what would be the best way, how to give this money away, or future surpluses, you know, maybe roll back BPT and stuff like that. But maybe that's for another, you know, when surpluses are so much juicier, you know. But I wanted to help businesses, but actually this amendment, this measure helps a great amount of people and businesses. And if you have the money, and it's, you know, it's been stated over and over again that there's this surplus, and we have the opportunity to relieve the burden of our people, then let's do that. Just plain and simple. You know, forget about what the administration's doing with the hospital and all that stuff. I understand our concerns about that, but that's the direction that the administration sets. And maybe if we were governor, we would probably, you know, do something different. But you know, at the moment, there's a $46 million windfall. And that's a wonderful thing. That means that our businesses are chugging along, and all the people are working, and this is kind of like a way to give everybody a pay raise, and maybe just for 6 months. But it alleviates the burden, and the burden on our people, and it allows for the greatest amount of good with what we got. And I think this is a good way to spend it. And I ask my colleagues for their support. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Senator
Chair.
Nicholas. Are there any, on this amendment, are there any objections to this amendment? Start with that, because we're still in this amendment. We haven't got to the full bill. We have 2 objections. All in favor of this amendment, please raise your hand. In favor of it? Amendment passes. Now we'll proceed to the full bill. Bill 277-37, as amended and further amended. As amended in the Committee of the Whole. Would you like, does anyone like to speak to it? If not, I'm going to ask Senator Parkinson to go ahead and close on the bill. Does anyone like to speak to Bill 277 as amended? This is where we're at the comments before he closes on this 3rd round. Senator Fisher?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Just a general comment. If we have over collected $46 million or something, that means that we have taken money from the people, and this is a good way, Senator Dwayne, to return.
Mr. Chair, is this a debate?
To return the money
or a point of
that
information?
we have.
Stand by. Senator Tello, what was that? Point of information?
Is this a debate or a point of information, or I don't know?
No.
Are we on the bill?
Hold on. Everybody calm down. We're on the 3rd round. Is it amendment or comments? Okay. So we're now, the amendments are done.
Okay.
Now we're at comments.
Okay, thank you,
Senator
Mr. Chair.
Fisher, please continue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We've clearly overcollected. That's not good for the government to overcollect. That's because we're taking money from people's pockets. It might be fun to be a legislator and find all that money, but it's not ours. And I like the fact that Senator Dwayne has put together a machine that's going to start to return that money to the people who actually own it. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to give comments to the bill as further amended in the committee? The whole. Senator Brown.
Why not, Mr. Chair?
Sure, thank you.
Again, I don't object to giving the credit back, but I'm cautious. I'm always a little cautious because, again, I've been at this long enough to think, you know, I'd like to think the yellow brick road is paved ahead of us leading up to November. But there are things that are going to come up, as they always do. And colleagues, while you're very, adamant about wanting to spend all this money, and yes, it is a direct benefit to the people of Guam, and I have no objection to that. But when you start introducing all your additional appropriation bills that you want to fund, we'll see where that goes, because there's not an endless supply of money. For some of you new colleagues that have come in here at a time of plenty, this is not the standard for the government of Guam, and many of you have made decisions that have put long-term obligations on the backs of the very people that you're just giving a mere $100 a month credit to. They're going to be paying far more than the $100 credit you're giving them and where they're going to be in a few months when all is said and done. And yeah, it's easy. This is a popular thing to do, but you know, as my good colleague Senator Blas says, what's popular is not always right. And what's the right thing to do is not always popular. So I just put that word of caution out there, and there's nothing that would, as he relayed, preventing us of coming back at any time and ensuring where things are financially and supporting this bill. But we want to make it seem like, well, no, let's just put it out because we don't want the governor to spend it. Let's do it now. Yeah, that's our priority. But you know, the governor or us or whoever it may be, the impacts of decisions we make impact our people. And maybe you don't think the hospital is important. Maybe you don't think prisoners breaking out of DOC is important. Maybe you don't think about the needs of our children in our educational system, the lack of what we're not getting them is important right now, because this is the easy, popular thing to do. But all those issues are going to keep cropping up. Hopefully they crop up during our watch so that I'd like to watch and see how you guys do some heavy lifting and figure out how to address that. Because we have grown this government in the probably over $100 million more. If not more, Mr. Chair, because I'm going to have to ask your finance people to actually tell us how much more in the last few years during this challenging time, how much we've grown this government and how much on the backs of our people they're going to have to pay. But, you know, you're going to give them that $100 credit. They should be happy with that. That should make them just want to take that pencil and mark your name. This is the easy stuff, colleagues. When you have to make the tough decisions and figure out what to do when you don't have all of this, and now that you're taking all of this off the table all at once, good luck with those decisions, because you know what? You're the majority. Let's see how you deal with it. Because it's getting tight. It's getting tight. This is not a forever, and I just love to see it happen during your time, because your real character and leadership is not built during the time of plenty. This is easy. So keep that in mind. If not, I'll be here hopefully in the next few months to remind you, because a lot of things can change in 2 or 3 months. I'd like to see where we're at. And the wonderful administration, I'd like to see what position they're putting us in as a community and what obligations they put in our place because of decisions they may or may not have made well. So with that, Mr. Chair, I have no further comment.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Tello, you have comments for the bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to go off what Senator Brown mentioned earlier about, growing this government. There's been a mass exodus since COVID. And when that happens, is that any revenue coming into the government at Guam also lowers. We don't have those people to generate revenue for the government. But what has been happening, the reason why we're still able to survive at this point and come in with an excess, for now, excess revenue, is because the price of everything has gone up. Gas, food, housing. That's how we're able to still have some excess. But I can tell you right now, when people get wind of this and realize that this is just too hard for us to stay here and live with those expenses so high, that they need to go somewhere else. So we're going to lose more people. More. Any excess revenue we have is to address the shortfalls. And that's what it's for. We can't continue to allow our schools our children going into schools that are molding, that are falling apart. We cannot continue to not fund DPW to fix our roads. They need the funding. It's not 1 mile for $1 million a mile anymore, Mr. Chair. Used to be. Right now they're saying it's about 1.5 million for just 1 mile of road. And how many families are out there still waiting to get their road paved? I'll tell you one thing, that $100 in savings they get, they're spending it on fixing their tires, or having their cars are being beaten up by the bad roads that we have. Let alone the biggest issue is the safety aspect, veering away from potholes and hitting into someone else, a family. So worst case scenario, that excess revenue is to help us with health care so that our people don't have to fly off island to get health care, so that our people are not afraid to walk in GMH because they're afraid they're not going to come back out. Or the employees who work at GMH, worried for themselves, their safety and well-being. That's what excess revenue is for. Like I said earlier, wait until the water bill comes out. That's going to be a bigger issue. Much bigger issue. So I can tell the public right now, this bill will pass. Of course it'll pass. But when it comes time to repair our schools, our hospitals, when it comes time to finally fix DOC so that we don't go into receivership there, and fix our roads, the priority has to be those areas moving forward, has to be those areas. Senator Brown mentioned something earlier. It's not just afraid to walk out the door of your home anymore because of public safety, the issue that we have not having enough police officers or not feeling safe to walk outside, but when she said, you don't even feel safe in your own home. Your own home. The meth issue is worse. It's not getting any better just because you don't hear it every day in the paper. It's gotten worse. So we need to remember that moving forward. There are so many agencies that are not getting their full budget, what they requested for, because there's not enough funds out there. So next time you go into Reverend Tax and have to wait long lines, or next time you get on the road or go to these schools, please remember that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Tyree. Anyone else would like to make comments on the bill? Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I very much appreciate the previous speaker's comments because that is what we're facing here at the legislature. But I just have one maybe variation on that in my view, and that is we have put money towards the hospital, and we have put money towards public safety. But money is not necessarily the issue with those. Management is. Management of what are we going to do at that hospital? And so they told us the solution was going to be, we're going to put a fiscal team. They're going to take care of this. They will make sure that the billings meet their projected, that they are billing everything that they need to, all of it. We could tell from the discussions that's not exactly what's going on. They don't even know what the hospital's proposed budget was. They don't even know whether the hospital had a shortfall for FY24. Even they are worried about the hospital's proposal to cut services for FY25, like critical services, ICU, telemetry, radiology, because that's their proposal. Because the fiscal team could not help them, it looks like, or refuses to help them. Public health cannot moved back into Manilao despite our health, our critical health needs. The veterans cannot move into Hessler. Public health cannot move into Manilao. All of that. That's not a money problem. That's a management problem. And yet, we will continue, I will continue. I don't care who gets the credit. But the governor and her team have refused to allow any ARP money to go directly towards assistance for power credits or the water bills. So, but their ARP is available for public safety, for shoring up our response to methamphetamine crisis on Guam. And I agree, it is, of course, a crisis. And that's why I'm so shocked that we can use it for other things. And of course DOE needs money, and we've been putting money, we've been putting mandates, we've been requiring them to show up here once a month. We have put $20 million that sat up there for I don't know how long. We put it to DOE, they took it. They said they needed it for Typhoon Mawar response and they were going to prioritize DOE, but they did not. They held on to it. And that's why I say putting the money to DOE, that's exactly what we should have done. We did it, they took it. With no remorse. And did they spend it on DOE? No, that's the most unbelievable part of the whole story. Now they're telling DOE, 1 year after Typhoon Mawar, or maybe, I don't know what they're going to do, give the money back? And now they're going to make DOE scramble after a year? I don't know. But they have completely turned their backs on DOE. Said DOE is going to handle their own, they've got their own money, they're going to handle it themselves. It's unbelievable. And I am worried, of course, you know, about what other needs, what other emergency is going to happen at GMH. But we've got, this morning they reported $200-some million in ARP. Wait, unallocated, sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but they reported the number. Pardon? 16 million. Yeah, and that's why I just don't want to pit our people against each other while somebody else sits on $216 million and says, let's go take out loans, let's go raise property taxes, let's go do these other things, as opposed to fixing DOE, GMH, methamphetamine crisis. Thank you. I see my time is up. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senator Blas, want to give your comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, Mr. Chair, with regard to the bill, I think that there's nobody in here that can deny the fact and dispute the fact that we should bring the money back to them. There's no denying that. I only had asked for a bit of caution, a little bit of conservatism, because let me just remind the body as to what happened 365 days ago. Last year in May, our consolidated expenditure report reported that we had about $32 million in excess monies. And then there's this thing called Marwar. You know what the excess monies amounted to 2 months after that? $850,000. Why do you think that happened? That happened because, you see, the body, we needed to tap into that monies to be able to help this island get back on its feet. And there was no businesses that were operating. And so I took the position of being very cautious because, yeah, you know what? This isn't about the money. This isn't about management. This is about the unexpected. This is about making sure that we have enough to be able to take us through in troubled times. And we've got troubled times on the horizon. I don't think we need to explain any more about health care on Guam or about the crimes or about housing or about water rates. But you know what? I hate to say this, but I went from, okay, I can possibly tolerate and vote for this because at least there's some money in reserve for us to continue to discuss and just in case. To now, throwing all of our eggs into this one basket and hoping to God that we don't either drop the basket or something doesn't fall into it. Knowing full well that this body has the ability to come back before the expiration of this first round, of this next round, to be able to extend it if we have the money. If there exists no exigent circumstance or other things for us to deal with. How quickly we forgot about Mawar and the devastation that it caused. You know, I was talking to a colleague, an old colleague, a couple of days ago, and we were reminiscing about how in the past legislatures we were fighting amongst ourselves and trying to squeeze a penny or a nickel out of 2 pennies that were between our fingers and hoping to God it's shiny enough to become a dime. How this body was fighting amongst itself for a $150,000 appropriation and how we needed to divvy that up so that we can give certain projects at least a little money. My, have times changed. You know, but back then when we were doing this, we were having 1.6 million tourists coming in. We had an economy that was growing. We did not have a drug problem at the extent that we're having right now. And Spam was still only $2.49 a can. And Don Donkey wasn't here. Wow, have we forgotten? My time's up, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Minority Leader. Senator Frank Blas. Anyone else would like to speak on the measure? If not, then I have the author to close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First and foremost, I'd like to honor some of my colleagues for their support. Senator Joe San Augustine, the Budget Chair, Speaker Therese Terlahi, Senator Chris Barnett, Senator Sabina Perez for their sponsorship of the bill that inspired this amendment, and Senator Jesse Lujan for coming and showing some bipartisanship and support for this bill. And I'd like to make an amendment to add those people as co-sponsors to the bill.
There's been a moment, okay, there's been oh, you want to add someone else on?
Oh, no, they're already on.
Oh, they're already on?
Yes,
Okay.
they're already on.
Anyone else?
This is, yes, Senator Joe, San Augustine, Speaker Talahi, Senator Chris Barnett, Senator Sabina Perez, and Senator Jesse Lujan. I'd like to add them as co-sponsors.
Okay, there's been a motion to add these individuals on. Is there any objection? No objection, so ordered.
When I think about this bill, and some of the comments and discussions have around it, I see this bill where we have this windfall as the opposite of growing government. Rather than putting this to pay raises or new departments and more government, we are returning it to the people. My colleague is correct. This is the people's money. So let's give it back to them. So I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I'm going to make a motion to add Bill 277-37 as amended by the Committee of the Whole to the third reading for voting, ma'am.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection, so ordered. Okay. The next bill on the agenda, we're going to move forward, is Bill number 285-37 LS, introduced by Senator Augustine. And we are going to call the panel in for this one, so give us 1 minute and we'll be right back. We're back from recess, and we're going to get started with Bill 285-37LS. And sitting on the panel is, could you introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Jose San Augustine, the Director for the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs.
Okay. And I've been told by the Sergeant of Arms he has been sworn in. And then on the far right is my good friend.
Good afternoon, Llewellyn Terlahi, Chief Fiscal Analyst from OFB.
Okay, thank you so much for being here. So now I'd like to ask the author of the legislation to introduce his bill. Yep, we've already did the formalities. We're going to follow the same format, 2 rounds, third for any amendments. So, Mr. Chair of OFB, Senator Joe San Augustine, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bill 285-37LS was introduced by myself and Vice Speaker Tina Rose Barnes, Senator Dwayne Nicholas, and Senator Roy Canenta, and is aimed at improving services for veterans through the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs. This bill seeks to enhance the support provided to our veterans by appropriating $1 million from the fiscal year 2024 General Fund to the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs to fund 6 veterans service representatives and 6 cemetery workers. We all know that Guam has a strong patriotic spirit, boosting one of the highest per capita rates of service members. That's throughout the nation. After service or retirement, attaining services can be challenging. Currently, the Veterans Office has only 4 service representatives to assist Guam's thousands of veterans with their service, claims, and registration. And you know, for most of us, we probably know that there's 2 other nonprofit organizations that are doing that. The job's going to come back to the Veterans Office. And that's what this bill does. As a retired veteran, I cannot express enough how the Veterans Office plays a crucial role in supporting veterans and their families with various needs. With additional personnel, we can expand outreach and registration efforts to inform veterans about the services available to them after service or in retirement. Furthermore, the Veterans Office has 5 limited-term appointed personnel working as cemetery workers. This bill will permanentize those positions and fund it. By creating 6 permanent positions, we will ensure Guam's continuous care for the cemetery, chapel, grounds, and burials. We seek to appropriate additional funding to the Veterans Affairs to hire the necessary staff for consistent and adequate services, maintaining the honor and respect our late service members and their families deserve. The funding for the bill was confirmed by the April 2024 CRER release last week that indicated over 40 or exactly $46 million excess revenue collection, even though through the past 2 bills it went down to approximately about $14 million. I'm grateful for the support of the bill co-sponsored and look forward to discussing this measure. And with that, Madam Chair, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Senator San Augustine. Okay, we're going to start with the back row. Senator Fisher, do you have any comments? First round. Any questions?
It's good to see you again, sir. I support the bill. I just, yesterday when we were speaking about the $360,000 for the vehicle, so forth, I think we began a discussion about eligibility to be interred in the cemetery, in the veteran cemetery, and I know that your hands are tied a little bit on that based on Big VA's determination of eligibility. I would just ask that you continue to work on, bringing that authority home so that you can determine, or your agency can determine who is eligible, because you know as well as I do that when a service member or former service member passes away, to be rejected or not to be allowed to have your loved one interred in the cemetery is baffling for the families after their loved one has served, yet based on the status of discharge, they can't be interred in the cemetery. So I'd just ask that you work on that, because that would help to alleviate a lot of pain in addition to the pain of losing a loved one. And I think it would really show that You know, these people, these men and women who decided that they would give their life for the country, I don't think that it should be a stumbling block that later on in their career they might have gotten in trouble. So I don't know what you can do about it because it's probably a federal issue, but I hope that, I hope you'll kind of lean into this one, sir.
Acknowledge.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Senator Kanata, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a co-sponsor of this legislation, obviously I'll be supporting it, but I just wanted to thank again the veterans and their families for their services, and also, you know, that look forward to the passage of this legislation, and that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kanata. Senator Paris, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions at this time, but I think this is a good complement bill to the one that we discussed earlier regarding the healthcare access for veterans. And I think this is also important that we permanize. I'm always a big advocate for the classified service, and especially if these limited terms have developed the necessary expertise while working on the job. I think this is critical to ensure that there's a consistent employment and staffing. So no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Paris. Senator Shelton, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. Mr. Snogestein, you confirmed for us in a previous bill regarding the Veterans Affairs Office for Guam that the $500,000 appropriated from the SERV Act, Public Law 36-84, was not ever given to your office. That's correct?
That's correct. If I may, Senator, just to let you know, I just started in June of 2023, but I was made aware of that particular.
Yes, thank you. I recall.
Piece. Thank you.
And the SERV Act had some very similar intent of what it was to pay for that appropriation, to help with housing, employment, higher education, health care, to hire these needed positions, similar or actually the same as those in this new bill. And so, Mr. Chair, those positions, if we were to fully fund the SERV Act here, excuse me, Mr. Snogestein, if we were to fully fund the SERV Act here, in addition to the $1 million, is that something that would continue helping your office?
Thank you for the question there, Senator. So you kind of brief of what the initial intent was for housing, homeless, and other stuff. So anything like that that will pertain to help the veterans is a more than welcome funding for us to be able to continue to help them in every capacity. Again, as you bring that up, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Director. It is for housing, employment, higher education, healthcare, suicide prevention, and mental health services. And so those health service navigators, those were positions to be funded. Your different counseling positions that were needed, those were also to be funded by the $500,000. And Ms. Llewellyn from our Budget Committee, can you confirm from this same funding source that we are using for this bill today, is there still an additional $500,000 available?
Yes, given that what was reported in this CRER that there's $46 million unobligated without the passage of any more bills, we still have that available.
And if we were to include the bill we just moved to the voting file, would there still be?
Yes, there'll still be enough.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vice Speaker, Senator Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes, you have the floor. You're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Snogestein and Ms. Llewellyn Terlahi for being here this afternoon for this hearing. I support the measure, Madam Chair, and I I wanted to first ask, I was talking to my colleague earlier from Telefofo, and I was asked, we were talking about the Veteran Cemetery Trust Fund, and we wanted to know if there was any money or any funds right now in this Veteran Cemetery Trust Fund. Section 67105.1 Guam Code annotated, Chapter 6 specifically says that there should be a Veteran Cemetery Trust Fund. The question is the fund still existing? And two, is there any funds, in any resources in that specific special fund?
Okay, thank you for the question, Madam Speaker. So the question is, there exists a Veterans Cemetery Trust Fund.
Yes.
And those, I could reply that yes, there is. The purpose of that funds is for those that are interred, that are active duty or veterans. The federal government reimburses us for their burial.
Right.
So, ma'am, there is a trust fund that exists. If I may, if you recall attending the memorial service, many of the beautification, painting, and equipment material that were purchased to get that project in motion came from that particular funds.
So Mr. San Augustine, thank you for that. So is there still any additional fund, or it continues to come based on the reimbursements that you get?
That is
there
correct.
is still funding in there?
Yes, ma'am. There is still.
And if we wanted to know how much it was, you could give us that amount later, because I know you don't have it right now. You didn't think this question was going to be asked of you. Could that be provided to us?
I could freely share with you that the last
Statement?
it's around 60,000.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that. And the appropriation, when the good author had asked us to be a part of this co-sponsorship, we shared that we would be 100% supportive of these measures, and that the positions would be the six veteran service representatives and the 6 veteran cemetery workers. Right now, how many do we have?
So with your first question, the Veteran Service Representative, we do have 4 that are permanent. At the cemetery, we have 1 cemetery worker of the 6 that were requesting permanent. The rest are limited term.
Okay. So with the appropriation, do we already have the proposed GG1s in place to fill this if this funding source goes through? I know there has been some difficulty in the past of trying to get the positions out of the administrative process, but is there already a mechanism in place to help expedite that process if this bill gets passed?
So I thank you for that, Madam Vice Speaker. Let me be very clear that the hard work that our people have put in to provide us this funding so that we could continue to do service for our veterans and our people. I will tell you that the mechanism is in place, but we will not put into motion until this bill has passed, and I've been given thumbs up to go ahead and move forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Director. Madam Chair, I truly appreciate him being here this afternoon, and again, I support this measure, and it was a commitment based on our oversight hearing also that because of manpower and the facilities and being able, you guys work even overtime with labor of love, and you shared that passionately at the public hearing. It's a commitment to show that whatever we have available here in the million that will go a long way to support the efforts and to fulfill the positions that are needed, but more importantly, to get the work done. So, Madam Chair, thank you very much. My time is almost up. I yield my time back. Saina Masi.
You're very welcome, Madam Vice Speaker. And yes, your public hearing drew out a lot of bills this time around because of that public hearing, and appreciate that. And so does the veterans as well. Senator Joanne Brown, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and certainly welcome also to Mr. San Augustine again. I don't think there's much more to say. One good thing, at least, about this legislation, it's actually addressing almost 100% increase to the Veterans Affairs Office that for so many years, there have been concerns by veterans that the office has not addressed to the degree and supported them in areas that they've needed. And as I mentioned, I started out with the Ada Blas administration, where pretty much the Office of Veterans Affairs really was a addition to the governor's office. Actually, it was just two people that actually ran that office initially out of the governor's office to provide assistance to our veterans. And over the years, it's sort of grown, but not to the degree that the support has been needed out there. As we know, we probably don't have an exact count yet, I'm sure, of all the veterans that are probably eligible for benefits. And Mr. San Augustine, we're just looking forward to actually seeing the implementation of this and getting the support out there, because there's always been a lot of criticism. And I think we want to move forward with that. And this is definitely an area where there's direct benefit to our veterans and their families, and that benefit multiplies, as we discussed yesterday. The benefits to their families, the benefits to our economy and our community overall. There's nothing but gain. It's all a very positive outcome of all of this. So I wish you well with this, and certainly thank you to Senator San Augustine as well for introducing this legislation. I think it partners very well with the bill that Senator Tello and I introduced, and we look forward to seeing great things happen at the Veterans Affairs Office, the actual application and the tangible outcomes that we would like to see for our veterans in the community. So thank you for your work with this. We certainly look forward to seeing the outcome of all this. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome, Senator Brown. Senator Jesse Lujan, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good afternoon again, Mr. San Augustine, Director San Augustine. It's always great seeing you. Thank you. During the public hearing, I know you had mentioned that the veteran service representatives, the folks that do the intakes and all that, you had some folks that were already certified, but if I'm not mistaken, you said that they were in limited term, but their term had run out, or something to that effect, but they had their certification already. And so that being said, I know I asked the question whether or not the folks that you're going to bring on had to go through that recertification, but you already have people waiting on the wings basically, that have already been certified, for these positions, right?
So, Senator, thank you for that question. Just to clarify and make clear,
okay.
On island there are only 5 Veterans Service representatives.
Okay.
That are certified to service the community.
Okay.
4 of that is in my office.
Okay.
And 1 is Mr. Alan Turner with Veterans of Foreign War, Post 2917.
Okay.
Those are the only ones certified.
Okay. So this one will give you additional 6?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. So what is the process of bringing 6 on again? I mean, is there a lengthy process what process do they have to go through to be able to, because you don't just go out there and tomorrow they're there, right? I mean, what do they have to go through to be able to come on board? How soon would they have to go through an interview process and all that? And so this bill passes tomorrow and the governor signs it into law. You put the notice out there. When would you bring these representatives in to be able to start, working in the office?
Yeah, thank you for that. Very, very valid question. So what we need to do is request DOA to put out an announcement to hire those positions. They will then do their own recruitment, and they will do the validation of those that they think meets the qualification for the job that we are requesting. Then it's probably going to take 3 months to bring them on board, right? Because we have to go do our own interviews,
Sure.
make sure that they are qualified with regards to what we're looking for, and then we're going to run them through a 6-month training on island, utilizing our veteran service representative that is certified and able to train these folks. So the process will be getting them orientated to the different paperworks, to the different documents that need to be reviewed, looked at, and how it's processed. But also they do have to take a online trip training to familiarize them with the federal process per se, right? And then also after that 6 month, in the middle of that training, they have to do what they call in the military bird dog. They have to shadow the service rep, and with regards to how they interact with the client, how they process the paperwork, how they complete that paperwork, and then how it's submitted. So the timeline would take 6 months for the training. My best guess is 3 months just to bring them on board.
Okay.
At the most.
So we're looking around this time next year, roughly.
Yes.
If not a month or two sooner, right? Something like that. So it's not something that they will come on board right away.
Exactly.
It'd be about this time next year, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks,
Sadowski,
sir.
Director Sadowski. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Senator Lujan. Minority Leader, Senator Frank Blas, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Sadowski, for being here. And I don't think you're going to find anybody here that's not going to support this measure. However, one of the things is while you're going to go ahead and beef up and staff beef up your staff, is your current space big enough to be able to hold this?
Yeah, thank you for that, Senator. One way or another, the services are needed out there to the veterans. I will pledge to you that as we're here working to beef up the manpower, I am quite sure that the administration is also watching this hearing, prepping themselves to assist me to find a place where we could accommodate this manpower.
Okay, and I bring this up because in my conversation with a very good friend of ours, Mr. Nick Francisco, he expressed some frustration in getting the assurances from the administration as much as 3 years ago that you were going to be able to move to a much larger space. And he expressed that again to me just very recently, but we need the space, and what can we do to move the administration to get you a bigger space? Are you familiar with that conversation?
I'm somewhat familiar, but let me share this with you that as the appointed director, it is my responsibility to push forward and work with the administration and try to balance the beefing up of the manpower and working with us to find a suitable place to accommodate these folks. Again, from the get-go, Senator, I take this as an easy solution for me, right? Because of my exposure to how we send folks out to service throughout the military. And I'm still putting 100% that the mayors will assist me to avail some space to allow me to place these representatives out there throughout the villages to provide that service in the absence of having a big enough office while we're working on it. But that's an alternative, and I'm sure that it will work.
I'm glad of that. Yes. I remember you speaking to that as well. I'm sure that we can all continue to push so that you can get the space that is necessary. I'm going to admit, I'm the one that stole that house from Gura to be able to give it to you folks, back in the Camacho Boylan days. But
thank you. It works. It works.
But you've understandably you've outgrown the space and you need more, and we can see where we can do this. But along those lines, and looking at a number of the different services that you provide to veterans, and recognizing the genesis for your office, this was to assist veterans get through systems. But now you've evolved so much. How much of your workload is actually workload that you're doing in behalf of Veterans Administration?
I myself?
You and your staff.
Well, for me, I don't feel it. I feel good because I know I'm doing something good and it's being backed by the VA, the big VA. The staff are doing a lot as well. And you know, if you're an efficient manager, you take care of your people and you let them know how important what they're doing is.
I appreciate that, and nobody's going to dispute that.
Sure.
I don't think that anybody can dispute that. I am just, you know, it seems, and if you look at a lot of the description of your job descriptions, it almost appears that this is actually a job that the United States Department of Veterans Administration, Veterans Affairs, should be taking on its own. We have taken it on as a jurisdiction because of the lack of services or the lack of ability for the VA to be able to do this. Kudos to you all. But, you know, there comes a point in time where it says, wait a minute, you are doing the work that veterans have expected from the United States VA. You're getting blamed a lot of times, Mr. San Augustine, for the shortfalls that the U.S. VA has, okay? And a lot of veterans, you know, not understanding fully the system, don't recognize that all you're doing is acting as a nexus, you know, between the veteran and the VA. So I think that there should be a study down the road when you get this funding, what are the things you're doing, and what are those things that, okay, Guam, the U.S. Guam office is doing these things, but this should be done by your federal counterparts, if you know what I'm saying, okay? And a lot of times you have to answer to individuals far and away from you, okay, with the need and the expectation that you need these answers today, but you have to deal with time zones, okay, and distance. And again, people are blaming you, and it's wrong to be able to blame you for something you don't have control of, or something you shouldn't have been controlled, but help to facilitate. So that's where I was getting at. Again, we're funding this because you need it. But is it truly our responsibility to fund this when this is truly a responsibility of the United States Veterans Administration?
Senator, I did mention several times that I've been to a directors conference at least 4 times. The VA and the federal government is doing their best. Now let's set aside the problems that other states and jurisdictions do experience, because similarly what they're experiencing, we're experiencing ourselves. And that's why I'm very grateful. Again, we come back to being patriotic, the most patriotic. And so you and I, being service members, should be fully supporting in preparation of the federal government, us knowing that the federal government has their own budget too. And when I came on board in 2017, 2018, the first thing I said is we need a hospital for our veterans. And that ain't going to go nowhere because they don't have the funding, nor is there anybody in Congress that will fight for us. Because if there's no veterans hospital in Missouri, but there's one in Idaho, well, if there's none in Missouri, drive to Idaho. Unlike here, we have to fly. So that's why I'm very appreciative that we understand that as much as I don't mind the blame. I mean, as long as I know I'm not doing anything wrong but doing good for our community and our people, I don't mind the blame. We're used to that. The fact of the matter is, what's the solution? And I think the solution is, as we work here to identify those shortfalls that we say the federal government should be responsible of, we could tell them that up and down, but if they don't have the funding too, we have to manage our own.
I agree, because, you know, just very recently I had a meeting with CBOC and Naval Hospital officials, and they both basically says, look, our hands are tied. We're basically at the bottom of the totem pole, you know, when it comes to being able to get the services or being able, you know, I've got veteran stories of veterans who want to be able to get health care, but there's just no access to it. And again, it goes to thank you. I guess this is more so of a thank you, Mr. San Augustine, for stepping up and continuing to do the work, recognizing that your work would be a lot more better if, you know, the U.S. Veterans Administration paid a little bit more attention to Guam. Thank you very much.
And we keep working on that. So can I share on this? 30 seconds, and thank you for bringing that up. You know, the Naval Hospital, I was up there about a year ago for a boil, and it was a pretty doctor that was going to see me, and I said, no, give me someone like my type. But the fact of the matter is they had to borrow tools from another department, but comes to find out that the doctors themselves have to clean those tools and set it up because they don't have those enlisted that normally would do that. I just want to share that. So we're fortunate what we're discussing here to help our veterans. I hope you all understand how big of a help this is. Thank you.
Thank you, Minority Leader Senator Frank Blas. Senator Will Parkinson, you have the floor.
I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Chris Barnett, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Cito Swasi to Director San Augustine for coming down again. And yeah, it was like I was saying earlier, they always end up coming here for the help, and we're very grateful to help. But I didn't have a question. It's more of a comment, frustration really, that after 6 years, we're still hearing the same things about, you know, the shortages, lack of funds, lack of services, lack of, well, there's plenty of empty promises. I don't know how many years ago we had heard in the public hearing room about you guys being able to move over to, and I know a minority leader brought it up as well, moving over to Hessler. So, yeah, it's the year of the veteran, and I'm not to make a cliche, but I mean, every year should be one, and if it is the year of the veteran, then I think that, you know, we need to all step up across all levels of our government to ensure that the veterans are getting the services they need, not just from the local government, but obviously from the federal government as well, because I know we all know we cannot afford to fill all the gaps the federal VA is not addressing. I mean, there's just simply not enough money in the world or on this island to do that. So, yeah, I think collaboratively, what we can do here locally, and that what our delegate or potential delegate, if a new one gets in, could be able to do in DC. I think it's going to take all of us really working together to elevate that presence and that service, return the service that the veterans have given to us and the people of Guam and the nation. So, Cito Smasi, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Senator Barnett. Madam Speaker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Mr. San Augustine, Director, for being here today and for your consistent testimony and attendance at these hearings. Of course, I support this bill 100%, giving $1 million to the Veterans Office, the local Veterans Affairs Office. I agree with my colleagues in the previous statements that it's really a continued injustice that your local office has to support the federal office when it's supposed to be the reverse. They're supposed to be supporting the veterans, and it's because of their shortfalls that we also are falling short. And I know that you've been in contact with them and you go to, you know, conferences and you discuss with them, and your personal relationship with them has helped us. So thank you for that. Please continue. I am just disappointed, though, that, of course, I could go on for probably a day talking about how many years it's been and how, especially now when they want to, you know, increase the size of the military's footprint on Guam, that they cannot take care of the previous debt that they had. It's really a debt. It's a debt to the veterans. And These veterans, so many of them, as we discussed the other day, are elderly now. That's why we're trying to do more for medical services to help them even navigate the federal system. But to give this money, I agree. I think it's unfortunate that, you know, we did have a grant to fund additional VSR officers to train them, to put them in, but that did not, it fell through in the end just because we were not able to hire them, and that's kind of a misstep, I say, on our part, on the local side, because we should have hired them with that grant. I also think, as people say this bill's overdue, yes, of course it is. This is $1 million that we were able to find from the general fund revenues collected in excess of what we anticipated for FY24. And that's why we're able to do this, because the revenues were higher than what everybody anticipated, both the governor's side and the legislature side, and the legislature sees fit to put this towards the veterans. So I'm all for that. And I hope it's going to bring to them the services that we can, although there are still so many that they should be entitled to from the federal side. I remember when we were in here not too long ago, we were trying to make an appropriation for a veterans conference. That was a mere $40,000 or $50,000 at the time. And then we learned that the governor had given $100,000 for the Veterans Conference from ARP funds. So, yeah, this is just, to me, though, another one of those things, like, we still have ARP funds. I think they said $216 million in ARP funds. And if the grant that they received to add the VSR, the 10 VSR officers that they promised, did not work that way. The ARP funds could have and should have worked that way. And I think they've made it clear that giving money to the veterans, the local Veterans Affairs office, is an absolutely valid use of ARP funds. In one of the testimonies, I think it was by Nick Francisco, who is the commander of the Order of the Purple Heart for Guam chapter. On this bill, and I think on another bill, and again at the status hearing on veterans that the Vice Speaker held, reminded us that they had been promised Hessler Building to move in there, and that with that they would be able to really strengthen their veterans' work, their veterans' community, their veterans' advocacy, all of those things, and have a space to do that in. And yet, the administration seems to be, at the same time, promising that, refusing to move the Department of Public Health back into the Mangilao building, refusing even the assessment, the last time I checked, had still not even been started, let alone completed and fixed and moved back in. The nurses are pleading with us to open up the Mangilao Health Center so that they can get the patients back in who they have lost because of the closure of that, especially pregnant women. That's, I think, their number one concern. I know my time's up, Mr. Speaker, so I'll end, but those are my concerns. Titus Masi.
Thank you. Senator Barnett, we already passed you. Senator Nicholas, you want to speak, and then you'll be followed, and it'll end with Senator Tyree. Yes.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know how often we're going to see two Joseph Augustines up there. Oh, you're Joe? Joseph? Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to commend you, and sir, I also wanted to commend Mr. San Augustine, Director San Augustine, your people's hard work down there and dedication. You know, I know that this bill will really help them out, and of course our veterans. You know, I've been down there to to the Veterans Cemetery many times this past year, and I see how wonderful all the work you're doing and how vibrant your workers are despite their challenges. They still continue to smile and serve the community very well. That's a reflection of leadership, Gunny. So I want to commend you and your team. Second of all, when I was a soldier, my wife let me walk out of the house today with my veteran's hat. I didn't know that I was going to have to put on my veteran's cap today, but I did. And when I first joined the military, I had no idea that we had benefits. All the way until we demobbed and came home, I really didn't know that we had that. And when I did put in my application for benefits, I did it by myself. And I had to learn. I mean, literally, I became a unofficial VSO for myself, and I really had to read the law and all of that stuff. And this is something that, sometimes our veterans are not privy to, and they don't know how to muddle through this, through the VA. I'm not saying, I don't like to say that I fought the VA and I won, because the VA was there to help me through, and I am a recipient of their services, and I do commend both the VA, federal VA, and also the local VA. It's just, I believe that this bill, with hiring more VSOs and more cemetery workers, really benefit our veterans. And that was a kind of like a horror story, what I went through with submitting applications, then getting denied, and then having to appeal, and then going through the process. It was a very long process, but I'm thankful now for for everything. $1 million pales in comparison to the benefits and all the financial windfall the veterans get, and with the number of veterans that we get, that's a lot of money for the island. So spending $1 million is really nothing compared to the windfall. And so I just wanted to mention that I support the measure, and I thank the good author, Joe San Augustine. And I'd like to also, I don't have any questions for you, sir, but I do want to go ahead and keep commending you for your good work down there. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator Nicholas. Senator Tideway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hafide, Mr. San Augustine, Director San Augustine, thank you again for being here and your patience. I also want to commend the Guam Veterans Commission that recently got established again. I think they were not a group, and can you tell us who now is the oversight or the chair? And
So, Senator, your question is who's the officers within the Guam Veterans Commission? Right now, the chairman is Mr. Bill Cundiff, United States Air Force retiree. The vice chairman is Mr. Roy Gamboa,
right.
Marine.
Okay, and then I did attend that meeting, but this is the first time the commission has gotten together in how long?
It's about a year.
It's been a year.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's good to hear that the commission is back and running and that
Yes.
they have a full board. I greatly appreciate that. Amendment that's anticipated to go on to this particular bill. And it's an amendment that was talked about earlier, Public Law 36-84, which is called it Securing and Ensuring. It's basically the Veterans Bill of Rights. It was alluded to earlier about how the money was never given to the Veterans Affairs because the money source actually came from earned income tax credit, which we could not have availed ourselves to. A lot of things were put in that place, spent, but, we were not supposed to use it. So this is the same thing. And this particular bill, public law that passed, it incorporates a lot of things, from burial benefits to higher learning to employment support to housing assistance. I don't know if this is going to be enough in the event that there's an amendment that gets through to add $500,000 Is that actually going to be enough money to cover the public law that was passed earlier for this? Or is it something that we need to have a public hearing on so that we can get the true figures on how much money it is going to cost you? Because we know that we had a bill recently that covers the medical perspective, the medical part of the liaison in the office, hiring 3 individuals plus a driver plus a van. So that was $340,000.
Yes, correct.
So this one here has a lot more other things, like Barry, like I mentioned, the other 4 things. If you had a chance to read the bill, it has just a number of things that are responsible for the Veterans Office. So is there going to be enough funding, or do you know the amount it'll take to fund this?
No, I don't. Based on what is expected for housing, education, behavioral health services, and I think there's more there, Senator Shelton?
Employment support.
Employment and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Higher learning.
Higher learning.
Is this going to take a whole different group of individuals now to come in to, and I'm not even including the medical part of it. Is this going to take, or can your current VSOs, and if this bill were to hire 6 other people, would it be able to manage this extra responsibility with the 6 VSO? Because I know that the senator of the legislation, 6 of them will go to cemetery, and then 6 will be VSOs.
That's a good question, Senator. The fact of the matter that there's an appropriation, an amendment of $500,000.
I know it was before your time when we had the public hearing for this, so just knowing that you don't know how much it's going to cost is enough for me. I mean, I'm sorry you couldn't answer it, because there is going to be an amendment coming up asking to incorporate $500,000 more to this bill. And I just want to know if it's going to be enough, or is it too much, considering we already have the health perspective. Everything that I mentioned here, burial, benefits, higher learning, employment support, housing assistance, also had health as well. So it would have been nice to hear from the Veterans Office to see how much this additional responsibility is going to cost the veterans. Because I don't want to pull away from what has already been established. One is that, 6 more VSOs to just cover the manpower that they've been asking for the veterans to come in for just on benefits, their disabilities or, other benefits that you help them with. And then, of course, the $340 to help with the medical side of it. How many more people are you going to need to cover the other benefits?
And that's a good question. And the reason why I'm pausing, Senator, is I want to be very conservative and not just say let's go for it. I want to be able to take a look whether the Bill 340 that we're going to bring on board, that manpower will be sufficient enough to entertain the $500,000 that is being prepared to be proposed or amended. It was 2021, I think, when the SURF Act of $500,000 was appropriated to the office, and for some reason it was never put into motion.
Yeah, the money wasn't given.
If anywhere on the language that it allows me to, besides administering those items for its intent, that I probably be allowed to hire possibly 2 other individuals to then monitor a different program here, for say. So we don't overstretch ourselves and say, well, I think the folks from the 340 should be able to entertain this particular program. I think it'd be smart to say two individuals under this program to administer it would be fair enough to say would be an efficient way to monitor and manage the program.
What is the percentage of individuals for veterans have issues with, that they need assistance? What do you think what is the highest percentage of issues that they deal with?
Well, actually, just the administrative part, the benefits part, not knowing where to go, what documents to have, and whether they are qualified for any type of benefits. And I wanted to respond to good old Senator Dwayne. He didn't know there was benefits, but there are folks that had joined the military and got out and still don't know that there's benefits for them. And so all these that are being discussed is a plus to allow us, and that's why I paused, because these are all bills that allows me to do more outreaches and do more efficient, better services for our veterans. If the $500,000, I will take it. I will make it happen. I would like to have it happen during my tenure, because I'm not here forever. So while this is being proposed, and there's a good understanding amongst the leaders and the senators, the elected senators in here, that this is what it's going to be used for, I want to take the opportunity to go ahead and accept it with the motion that, 2 additional individuals to run this program. That makes sense, ma'am?
Yes, it does. And a little more stuff that you added too. Would you say that one of the biggest issues right now, considering our aging veterans, majority of their issues have to deal with health?
Health, but it's no use if they have the health problem but don't know where to go to get that administrative problem, the administrative help to start it off. So
Exactly.
all these will address many of that.
Yes, it will.
And so, Senator, so just to let you know, earlier today I was down at the cemetery and I already tasked one of my folks to start putting together a procedure for 340. And I already tasked the other guy to start doing a cost to go out there and find me vehicles, quotations for the vehicles. So it's already in motion.
I believe what you're referencing, just to let everyone know, 340 is actually Bill 268-37.
The 340.
But we're calling it the 340 because it's enough to buy a van,
Yes.
to get a van and to get 3 individuals and a driver, which is desperately needed for this. So I appreciate that you're advocating for that measure, and that this $500,000, before you leave, I wanted to get your 2 cents on it and how it can contribute and not take away from, because what we don't want to see happen is that we have $1.5 million and the 340 is vetoed for some reason, and then you get less. Because it's the last thing we want to do is take away money from the veterans that we have the option, or not the option, we have the ability right now to give you.
Sure.
And that would be a disgrace to our veterans if anyone were to veto or vote no for this bill. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Teddy. I believe everyone has spoken on the first round. Do we have a need for the second round? And if I see a lot of heads shaking, we don't need a need for a second round? You have a question? Okay, we'll just entertain that one question, and then we're going to end the rounds, and we'll move to the amendments. Senator Paris.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. And this one more question for Director, and I guess I just want more clarification on, so what the legislature does is we authorize funding, but we don't actually provide the cash, right? So I just wanted to make sure, have you been able to clear the hurdles in ensuring that whatever we appropriate, you're getting pretty on a timely basis? And if not, what are the reasons for that? Have you figured out the solutions for getting funds on a timely basis?
Madam Senator, can you clarify, elaborate a little bit more? I'm kind of like a little bit lost, please.
Yeah, of course. So basically, are are you getting money on a timely basis? Pretty much, that's what I'm asking. So if you request, yeah, are you getting your allotments on a timely basis?
I have not had any complaints from my administrative officer that we're not. Okay. I think it's fair for me to, it's safe for me to say that we have, because I've not had any issues or any concerns that are brought up or I'm aware of.
Okay, and especially with the FMIS system, right? They just launched. There was a lot of issues with that, and I'm hearing that some vendors are not getting paid because they lost the information. Do you have you had any issues with paying out vendors?
I don't think we have any vendors. Well, besides the power bills and water bills. No, ma'am. But yes, in the beginning we did have challenges. Accessing the system, because it's kind of, we have to go to a training and familiarize ourselves of, how to move the mouse and what buttons to push and all that good stuff. But no, not for our power, water, and telephone.
Okay, thank you. So no barriers at this time for you?
No barriers at this time.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. My colleagues, that ends the second round. We will now excuse the panel, Mr. Snogsteen. Thank you, sir, for showing up, and we'll do it the best we can. And with that, take 1 minute only, just until he leaves, and then we're going to go right into the amendments. And how many amendments go? Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we still got quorum. Okay, we only have one amendment. All right, my colleagues. We'll wait for Mr. Snogsteen. The amendment is being passed out, my colleagues. There's only one amendment, and with that, one amendment is Senator Amanda Shelton. You have that amendment. If you can please read your amendment so we can move on that and we can close this bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This amendment is to add on the second line of page 2, second line of section 2, that's line 8 to 16, on page 2, the sum of $1,500,000 and to the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs. Of this amount, $1 million shall be allocated for the 6 veteran service representatives and 6 veterans cemetery workers, and $500,000 shall be allocated to GOVA to support implementation of Public Law 3684, the Securing and Ensuring the Rights Veterans Earned, the SERVE Act, which was established to improve access by veterans to critical programs such as housing, employment, higher education, and health care, including suicide prevention and other mental health services. If approved, Mr. Chair, the amendment increases the total appropriation to the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs from $1 million to $1.5 million using FY 2024 general fund revenues collected in excess of the adopted levels in Public Law 37-42 as amended. In addition to authorizing the Veterans Affairs Office to hire veteran service representatives and cemetery workers, Bill 285. Through this amendment, it will help ensure the Veterans Affairs improves access by veterans to critical programs such as housing, employment, higher education, and health care, which includes suicide prevention and other mental health services. The provisions of Bill 285 are consistent with the intent of Public Law 36-84, the SERVE Act, which recognized the role and responsibility of the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs in establishing a Veterans Bill of Rights. The law envisioned that the Veterans Affairs would make all efforts to apply for, receive, and administer grants or subgrants or enter into intergovernmental agreements to provide or expand critical services. With Bill 285 and this amendment before us today, we have another opportunity to connect veterans and their families to services provided by relevant government entities, including UOG, GCC, Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, and the Department of Labor. Providing an additional $500,000 to the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs is a small but important step forward in our broader efforts to strengthen the agency so that it has the staff and resources to help veterans navigate different programs they may be entitled to at the local and federal level. For these reasons, I ask my colleagues to support this amendment. And Mr. Chair, as you heard previously in the discussion, this bill that was voted on by the 36th Guam Legislature was never funded, and the funding sources stated in the original bill were tapped out and not used. Also, we asked the governor to use ARP monies, and that was not done. And so to ensure that this program goes through and this money is given to the Veterans Affairs so that they can continue helping to serve veterans in conjunction with your bill here today, which serves the same mission, I ask for the support of our colleagues. Just Masi.
Thank you, Senator Shelton. Does anyone have want to comment? Madam Vice. And then you'll be followed by Senator Tideway.
Si Jus Masi, Mr. Chair, I promise I'll make this short. I just want to say I sit in support of this amendment and know that I share the same sentiments as the author of this amendment and her explanation on Public Law 36-82, which is the securing and ensuring of the rights veterans earned, which is the SERV Act, and to establish to improve the access by veterans to critical programs. And we talk about the housing, the employment, higher education, and welfare, including things that have affected our veterans, which is suicide. So suicide prevention is in there, and all other mental services. Mr. Chair, this is a very, very good amendment. Again, this amendment, if passed and if the law passed, will show the veterans that we in this august body do care for the veterans. We've been big advocates. We've been big supporters. We have literally brought the issues of concern of veterans to the forefront with our hearings, with our proposed bills from really across the aisle on the veteran issues. So I thank the good author for this amendment, and I really appreciate it, and I support it 100%. Senator Masi.
Thank you, Madam Vice. Senator Tideway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I was speaking earlier with the director to find out, to ensure that this inclusion of this amendment that I spoke on would actually have enough funding to cover all these areas. You know, the Public Law 3684, which is the Veterans Act, or SERV Act, was actually passed in February of 2022. So it's been quite some time. Yeah, 2022. It was a while ago. And it's not until just now that we're addressing this. Actually, technically, we are addressing it. We addressed it with Bill 285, where we talked about providing health care for services, a liaison office within the Veterans Affairs. And you yourself, Mr. Chair, introducing this legislation for $1 million to cover 6 more individuals in the cemetery and 6 more individuals as a VSO. I'm just hoping that this extra 500 is going to be a complement to what we've already spoke on, which was what Director San Agustin keeps referring to as 340, the 340 bill, which will cover the health care. Because if you look at the Service Act, which was, like I said, since 2022, and nothing has been done since that time, it has several areas: higher learning, employment support, housing assistance, burial benefits. These are definitely worth the assistance of our veterans to know their benefits and what they can avail themselves to. Absolutely. But what I don't want to see is that, like I mentioned earlier, I don't want to see that 1.840 will be deducted by $340,000 by veto. You're giving me that head like, what? What does that mean? That means the governor might think that the $500,000 that was included in this particular bill is enough to cover the health perspective. But I can tell you right now, it won't. Because what my bill, Bill 285, AKA 340, is going to require a liaison office within the Veterans Office and a vehicle to assist those veterans. I wish the bill had another public hearing because since, like I said, this was passed in February of 2022, costs have gone up. Things have gone up quite a bit since then. So I'm just hoping that there will be enough to cover those extra individuals that will be used to service these other, well, benefits. I call them benefits. Hopefully there are higher learning benefits for veterans, employment support for veterans, and housing assistance for veterans. Quite a bit. So though I appreciate, more money to the Veterans Office, I do want to make sure that both bills pass, giving $1.8 million, $1.840 to the Veterans Office, and not just 1.5. So in other words, both bills to pass, Mr. Chair, is what I'm saying. I hope that because we're adding this 500, it's not going to take away from one of the most important things that our veterans need assistance to, and that is healthcare services. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? Senator Brown? Oh, Senator Blas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, I don't think there's anybody that can appreciate and recognize and want to be able to provide more services and more funding to the Office of Veterans Affairs. However, I hate to be the stinker in this whole thing, but Public Law 36-84, which was derived from Bill 227-36 COR, was an appropriations measure. It was a public law that basically made an appropriation. So the law is an appropriations measure that's in the books. In order for that to be able to do this, I think that for your accounting purposes, you're going to carry over now an appropriation, continue to have the appropriation in there. The governor signed the bill into law. Now, if she didn't fund it because she said it was the wrong funding source, why'd you sign the bill? Why didn't you send the bill back to us to be able to fix it? But no, she signed it into law, which basically made it a public law. Now it's in the books. So it's going to be an accounting nightmare when we decide that we're going to have to balance the budget. Okay? And then this may get caught up because then how do you do this? And then you had an appropriations measure, a law. Now, if this thing said repeal 3684 and include this into that, that could possibly work, but 3684 is an appropriations measure.
Would you like the author to answer that question?
Well, somebody's got to answer it because, again, it's an appropriations measure. We can't, it's a law that's in the books. The law in the book says that this is the money. Now, there's nothing here that basically says, we can't use that money anymore. Well, Governor, you signed the bill into law. If it was never your intent to be able to fund it because you couldn't fund it from this funding source, why'd you sign it into law? Okay? And I appreciate and I understand the concern from the good author of the amendment. Because, like with you, when we wanted to make sure the money gets there, we got to make sure the money gets there. And I don't want this whole bill to be caught up, and because what happens now is that there's a contravening or there's another law that exists that says, wait a minute. Okay? So again, I don't want to say no for the sake of saying no to this amendment. It's just that we just got to recognize this was 3684 was an appropriations measure. Now, if it was a measure that basically established the program, okay, and it was going to be funded by existing funds, that's fine. But it didn't. It provided funding there.
We're going to take a short recess to make sure that we're not double appropriating. Okay, we'll take a short recess. Senator Blas is coming in. At this time, I have Senator San Augustine, you have some information?
Yes, I do, Madam Chair. I contacted the OFV director, and he advised me that at the time this bill was introduced, it was referring to the EITC to fund it. And because at that time, they ended up with the good intention that there would have been funding, it ended up not having any funding source. So with that, my director advised me that yes, in this bill, we can fund it because there is sufficient funding available. And incorporate that money, and then the accounting side will just work its way and just fix it. Because why? Even though it's a public law, there is no money in the EITC to fund it. This will ensure that it is funded.
Thank you, Senator San Augustine. If I'm not mistaken, there's also two funding sources, the earned income tax credit plus as well as other funding?
That's correct.
So then there is two funding sources, and one funding source is not available. So the second funding source is still available, and thus an appropriation.
That's correct. But based on this, the introduction of this to add and fund it is allowed, is acceptable.
Oh, it is allowed, but it's double appropriated. And he shakes his head yes for the listening audience. Okay, Senator Blas, you can continue, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Like, again, it's not my intent to say no to the, it's just we're making sure that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's with regard to this. Unfortunately, again, when 3684 was signed into law by the governor, okay, she signed it with basically telling the veterans, giving them the assurances that there was, the funding was there and the services we provided, okay? I can appreciate the author of this amendment, and when she found that that money wasn't given to them, and so, recognizing that this is going to fund something that the governor said was supposed to have been funded earlier, it should not detract from the purpose of the original purpose of this bill, and the purpose of the previous bill, the bill that we previously passed, or that we deliberated in this body, hopefully passed in this body, for another $350,000 appropriation as well. So, that's a total of about $1.8 million. But again, that should not have occurred had the governor just funded when she signed it into law, saying that there was funds. If there was no funds, Governor, why'd you sign it? Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome, Senator Blas. Speaker Trish-Terlahi, I'm sorry. Is there anyone else like to speak? Senator Brown, you're recognized.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair. This kind of just relays the concerns I know the veterans have raised over the years with legislation that's been passed and not implemented. I know there's a comment the speaker made earlier this afternoon, very much with regards to the actual implementation of legislation to really address the issues that the veterans of Guam, and not too long ago here at the public hearing room laid. A lot of talk and no action. And this is another example. I mean, here we are 2 years later from the time this legislation was passed and not seen it once again implemented. And it's not like the parties here don't have engagements regularly with the administration. And yet the end result is nothing better. So the list continues. So we go down the list in the government of Guam. I mean, I just think we need to point that out because it's kind of obvious. And I think that's very evident from the concerns and complaints that we've heard, and certainly in the times we've gone up recently to talk to our veterans at their forum about the concerns they have of not getting service. And we know they're a very significant population in this community. I don't know anyone who's not connected to or related to a veteran, and it's unfortunate. So hopefully the administration, they're remaining barely a year to 2.5 years, hopefully will actually implement some of these programs so that we actually can see the improvements. And this is not an issue that we have to hear continued concerns about, then actually improvements in the community and service to these veterans can actually be addressed. So with that, Madam Chair, I just wanted to provide that comment. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Senator Brown. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the amendment? Speaker Trish-Terlahi, you recognize.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had asked yesterday as well what happened with that 500,000, because part of it was supposed to be used for some of the things that we talked about on this bill. It was supposed to be used for these purposes, and yet, according to the director, Jose San Agustin, they never received this money, and that's since 2022. They did not fund it, despite the legislature passing. I think it was Senator Talina Nelson who sponsored this. I'm not sure, was it yours? It was Senator Shelton's, and they did not fund it. And I don't see any reason why they did not fund that. I think it's a bad excuse to say there is an issue with the funding source. Their team probably came in here and told us at the time there is a very valid funding source, and that's why we passed the bill. And then the governor signed the bill into law. So that's their issue now. And the governor has full authority to use transfer funds to make up the difference. The governor has full authority to use all those federal funds to make this up since 2022. And they should do that. They really should do that. I don't think we need to bail them out on this one. I think we need to put the pressure on and have them be accountable for those appropriations that remain in the books that they just ignored, did not fund, did not transfer, did not share their federal funds with the veterans. These are the services, and we just finished. So this bill is to give $1 million to the veterans. And I'm in full support of it. I'm afraid I don't think this amendment is necessary today, because we just finished passing down a bill to third reading to give an additional $340,000 as well. All of these are from general fund. All of these are in addition to any of the funds or the transfer of funds that the governor has available to her, in addition to any of the ARP funds that the governor has available to her, the CARES Act money, all of it. And I don't want her to think that, well, these programs that bill funded, that law funded, are already on the books of the Veterans Affairs as their obligation. They are supposed to provide these things. The testimony at the time was also that the veterans said the VA is supposed to provide these things, the federal VA, and that they should be able to navigate these other things. And I don't want to decrease the focus on health care here that we have just put down into the third reading that encompasses PTSD, mental health. All of it is encompassed in that bill, and it's very specific. It directs the money for a specific purpose, and it doesn't allow them to wiggle out of that responsibility if that bill's passed. Whereas I'm just afraid making it more general, after we already have these things on the book and they chose to ignore it, it's just going to allow them to ignore it again. So I think we would be doing good by the veterans by passing the bill in its original form, $1 million, in addition to the bill that we previously discussed and put to third reading without any objection was Bill 268, so that we forced them to specifically focus on medical care and the mental health, PTSD services that they need. And of course, an FY25 budget is coming up in just a few months. And we can reassess at that time whether they've implemented any of these programs. As far as I can tell, they haven't even planned. I don't even want to say it, but it's just I think it's time for the administration to put their actions into their declaration of the Year of the Veteran. My time is up now, Madam Chair. Sizos Masi.
Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker. Is there, okay, Senator Dwayne Nicholas, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support the bill and the amendment. You know, as a veteran, I know for a fact that GovGuam has nothing to do with veterans' health care. However, adding extra money to the VA, the local VA, to help fund for VSRs, VSOs, actually is a benefit to the VA and to our veterans, because these service workers will help them muddle through VA law and benefit regulations to help them achieve medical care, because it's the federal side that offers medical care. And so supporting this amendment and this bill gets our veterans closer to that. Like I said, when I joined the military, I had no idea they had VA benefits. When I was in the military, I didn't know there were VA benefits. When I demobbed, I didn't know there were VA benefits. Not until I came home that I realized I had these benefits. And unlike other veterans who may have gotten help by an attorney or a VSR or a VSO, I didn't get help. And the director said that he was going to do more outreach, and I commend him for that, because there was one veteran that actually came up to me, and for many years he had a decision from the VA, but he didn't know that he had commissary privileges and VA benefits, because he was awarded 0. And if you don't read the decision letter well, or you don't understand VA language, chances are you're not going to find that you do have benefits. And so I told this veteran that he had 0%, which actually shows that he did qualify for veterans benefits and that he can go to the commissary. And he immediately ran out and went to the commissary. But having the VSOs and VSRs and supporting this amendment and this bill and having the VA hire more people, because I know those guys work down there and they all share each other's jobs. That's just how it is in GovGuam. When somebody else needs help, we all help each other, right? And this will ensure that the veterans who need to get into the system and to qualify and apply will get the necessary help that they deserve. And I support the amendment. I support the bill. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Nicholas. Anyone else? Senator Snogestein, you're recognized.
Madam Chair, we're speaking about the amendment, correct? Not the bill
Yes,
in
sir.
general.
Not the bill
okay.
itself, yeah.
Okay. I just want to be very specific, and the reason why I asked that question is, but number one, vets know what vets need, not anybody else. I just want to make that very clear. Some of us, and some of you here are children of vets. You learn what the veterans need. You learn what are their desires. But a veteran knows and would hope that he will get assistance. There was mention about the other bills that were introduced. Specifically 268, that I fully support, is about providing the medical assistance. Specifically, medical assistance. Bill 285, other than the amendment, talks about hiring 6 VSRs or VSOs and permanizing 6 cemetery workers. The amendment here, yes, it is right. It's a public law, it was introduced. It should have provided funding from EITC or any other funding that was available. Yeah, it should have been done ARP or whatever means. Me as a vet, I don't care how it's funded, just get it funded, get it done. That's what vets will tell me, and that's what I tell other vets. We're not going to ask for any helping hand, we just want you to do your job as elected officials and helping us, because why? Veterans on Guam contribute to the economy more than a lot of folks don't realize. But going back to this amendment, the intent of that amendment was to fund Public Law 3684 that was never fulfilled, which was to establish and improve access by veterans to critical programs such as housing. 268 has nothing to do with housing. 268 has nothing to do with employment. 268 has nothing to do with higher education and healthcare, yes, maybe. Suicide prevention, maybe to a certain degree, and mental health service. Bill 285, does it have anything to do with housing, employment, higher education? No. 285 is about hiring a VSR to fill in the form so the veteran can get his benefits. Okay? The 6 cemetery people is to help to permanize the cemetery folks. So with this amendment, unfortunately, in 22, was never fulfilled. I feel bad because back then we actually really was hoping in 2022 that it would have been covered through whatever means. ARP, I wish it was. EITC, unfortunately, that never materialized. But moving forward, and some of you colleagues would say, the people are listening, the veterans are listening. They're saying, okay, you're going to take care of me on the medical side on 268. Okay, you're going to help us and reach out to other veterans so they can make their claims. You're going to make sure the cemetery is taken care of and we're able to bury our fallen comrades. The amendment is to make sure that if a veteran doesn't know where to go to get housing, assistance, employment, higher education, and health care, that's what it's for. That's what the amendment is for. And I stand in full support of this amendment, and we just move forward. We already know there's funds available. Yes, it was clear that, number one, it should have been funded in Public Law 3684. But you know what? Shame, sweep it underneath the carpet and let's move on, because number one, the veterans are still being shortchanged. No matter how we look at it, we need to take care of our veterans. My fellow veterans, we need to take care of them. And that's how I will move on this, and I fully support this amendment. And I hope my colleagues would just take a look at it. Look at all 3 bills, or 2 bills, and then the amendment to the 1 bill. This is an add-on. And I really pray that the governor does not veto this bill, because we need 268. No doubt. We do need 285. And with the addition of 500,000, we do need it. The veterans are asking for that help. And many of them, like one of my colleagues mentioned, yeah, we engage with them, we meet with the administration, but we don't talk about all these bills that, unfortunately, we did not even know that was never funded. I'm happy now that it was reviewed. It wasn't funded. Let's fund it, and then we move on. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, Senator San Augustine. Is there anyone else? Senator Chris Barnett, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the veterans who are watching right now. I know they're watching, and they should know that it's a damn shame that this amendment was passed. It's a law, but it was just never funded. And yet here we are, talk about the veterans. You're the veterans, the priority. The fact is, this great program critical program that would assist veterans with housing, employment, higher education, health care, including suicide prevention and other mental health services, was passed in 2022, but this administration, who just can't stop breaking their arm to pat themselves on the back about the finances, didn't give a single dollar. And that's the facts. Thank you to the veterans in this body for their service. But I respectfully disagree. I don't think that we need to be a veteran to know what veterans need, or right now what they need is they need this administration to truly stand up for them and go to bat for them. And respect the laws that this body passes, fund the laws that this body passes, and treat every year like it's the year of the veteran. Dahlia, not funding this, taking $20 million from our public school kids. Even after the typhoon, they took money from Veterans Affairs. Have you no shame? Have you no shame? I'm just not comfortable. Of course, I support the services that this amendment would provide, but there's a law that's already supposed to provide these services, and there's a law that is supposed to be funded to provide these services 2 years ago. So I implore the governor, lieutenant governor to immediately fund this program, fund this public law that's already in the books. Problem solved. But, you know, it's a very tricky situation to talk about this amendment. Of course, I support what it's doing, but I just don't support letting the governor and lieutenant governor off the hook. The retiring speaker said the veterans want us to do our jobs. Well, I tell the governor, lieutenant governor, coming from the veterans, do your job and fund this. Sidus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the measure? Okay, is there any objection for this? There's an objection. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. Amendment fails. Now on the reading of your bill, Senator San Augustine, would you like to close, or would anyone else like to speak on the bill before Senator San Augustine closes? There is no one. Senator San Augustine, you are ready to close, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have nothing really on closing other than I ask my colleagues to support Bill 285 and that we move this bill to be sent to the third reading file, and then we motion to rise.
Okay, there's been a motion to move to the third reading file. Is there any objection? There is no objection. Move to the third reading file. We're going to rise out of the committee of the whole and take a short recess as we do so. Thank you, colleagues.
Imminent 37 na legislature in Guahan has risen from the Committee of the Whole. Senator Perez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to adopt the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole to place Bill 274-37 as amended by the committee in the third reading file.
On that objection to adopt the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole, is there any objection? On that motion to adopt the recommendation, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. On As to the other bills in the Committee of the Whole, Senator San Augustine. Senator San Augustine, you're recognized as to the other bills that were in the Committee of the Whole.
Madam Speaker, I wish to report back to the body after deliberation for the following bills. Bill 268-37 as amended by the committee and further amended in the Committee of the Whole be placed in the third reading file. That's the first one.
On the motion to accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries.
On Bill 277-37 as amended in the Committee of the Whole and be placed in the third reading file.
On that motion to accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole, on Bill 277, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries.
And on Bill 285-37, there was no amendment in the Committee of the Whole and be placed in the third reading file.
On that motion to accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole on Bill 285, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, this bill's passed to the third reading as well. Motion carries. All right. Majority Leader, you're now recognized on Bill number 260. All the bills. No.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I move to pass on file Bill number 57-37 COR, Bill number 273-37 COR, Bill number 289-37 COR, Bill number 261-37 LS, Bill number 260-37 COR, and Resolution number 218-37 COR.
Jesus Masi, Majority Leader, can we get a notwithstanding on that motion since we are going to act on them all together?
Notwithstanding the rules, I move to pass on file those bills previously mentioned in one motion.
On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. We have thus exhausted the second reading. We will now move to third reading, to the consideration of the daily file. Clerks have indicated they can be ready by 3 p.m. tomorrow.
Yes.
Majority Leader, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I move to recess until tomorrow, 3 in the afternoon for voting.
Sijus Masi, so we will begin at 3 p.m. For voting. The files will be distributed prior to that. They will be on your desk. Sijus Masi. We are recessed until 3 p.m.